Hey, I recently showed y'all a video of what it looks like when the parts and planes are going out. Well, this is what it looks like sometimes when the parts and planes are coming in. You're going to want to stick around to the end of this one because the plane that I've got at the end of it, it is beautiful. You're going to love it. Somewhere between poor time management and having too many top priorities is this mess. A bunch of boxes I haven't even had time to open yet.
Here's box number one.
In the interest of time, I went ahead and opened this off camera and just laid everything out so that way y'all can see it. The main thing here is this is a really decent 4.5. I'm pretty sure this is a Type 17. It's got the thicker casting here. And you can see there's an issue up here with that screw hole for the knob. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually send this off to Mike up in New York. And he's going to get that fixed up with a helical or whatever is required. But a 4.5 is a pretty popular size. Lots of folks want those. So that's why this one I think is worth saving. And on the topic of packing, I saw a post on Facebook the other day. People were talking about how to pack and how not to pack hand planes, and the discussion of whether they need to be disassembled or not came up. And here's my take. Of course, I'm going to disassemble them. I have a video here on YouTube that shows how to do that, how to disassemble it and pack it for shipping, for safe shipping. But the thing I just want to point out is that by packing these three parts as a unit, like so, and then packing the sole as a separate unit, and normally I would leave the knob attached, of course, if I didn't have that issue. But by doing that and then packing the tote, you can actually fit this into a smaller box, which is going to save the recipient money. So that's just one more reason. Then, of course, for me, I think it's just safer to pack it disassembled. And then, somebody was arguing, oh, well, Lee Nielsen sends theirs already assembled. Well, that may be true, but that's because they don't want to deal with the fallout when somebody gets it and they have no idea how to put it together and properly set it up. So yeah, they send them assembled so that way that can cut down on their customer service calls. At least that's my opinion. But as far as this 4.5 goes, look for this one in the next, I don't know, month or so, however long it takes to get it fixed. And this tote is actually not original, but this is off of probably a Stanley made plane. So this one is available if you happen to be in the market for a non-Stanley tote, or even if you want to put that one on a Stanley, that's cool too. Just in case you're not familiar with it, this is a number 83 scraper right here. They're not super common, but what's even less common is finding them with the additional roller. So there was an additional roller that would have gone on that. About 90+% of the time it's missing. Did I say 83? I think I was supposed to say 82. About 90-something% of the time that's missing, and the blade is almost never original, which is the case here. And then, of course, that one is missing. So, fun fact, these screws right here are the same ones that go on the Stanley number 78 fence. So if you happen to find a number 82 scraper plane that's a parts plane or a parts scraper, then you can recover the screws from that and put them to use elsewhere. And then the other thing that I got, after I put out my video on the 5.5 lever caps, which you should go check out that short, we were talking in that video about the 2.25 and then the 5.5, and this one is fairly uncommon because it actually has both. So it looks like they produced it first as a 5.5, and then later on they stamped the 2.25 over it, which I think is super, super unique. And I think we can nail that one down on its age pretty well too. I'm going to go ahead and open this one up next, and I'm going to do the same thing where I'm just going to open it off camera and then we'll look at some of the contents inside. There were a handful of planes in that box, but the only ones that I really want to highlight are the highlights. And so the first one is going to be this Miller's Falls number 206. So this is the equivalent of like a Stanley number 118, the all steel ones. And I'm going to be honest, you don't see a lot of these. I haven't seen a lot of these Miller's Falls 206s. This was definitely their equivalent of that. And, one of the Miller's Falls guys will probably be pretty enthused about that. And then we've got this older Sargent number 409. So a number 4 size. And this is actually an early Sargent. When you see that upside down horseshoe like that, you know that's an early one. And then, of course, it's got the patent date of February of 1891. So that's another, obviously, indicator that it's old. This one has seen its better days. That's a pretty nice repair. But that's all probably going to get retired. And then the rest of the good parts on this will go to make somebody else's 409 good. The only redeeming quality on this Sargent, well, there's a couple of them, but one of them is somebody was smart enough to put a Stanley blade on it. So that's pretty nice. And that's actually a pretty decent blade. That is a the original probably Stanley chip breaker. And you know that because it's got that oval shaped hole there instead of the more oblong shape like we see on the Stanleys. This one's probably not a Stanley because of that, how small that hole is, but you get the idea of the shape there that we're going for. Let's try this one instead. There we go. So you can see the difference between Sargent and Stanley there. As far as its other redeeming qualities, the fact that the early Sargents had rosewood, which is what that is right there, and that looks like it's intact. So somebody out there that needs a nice Sargent original rosewood is going to be pretty stoked to get that. And that knob is not in half bad shape either. Got some pretty decent figuring there. And then another fun fact about the early Sargents is they had the longer brass like that. So that's another indicator if you happen to come across a loose rosewood tote and you weren't sure. Of course, this toe is longer than what you see on a Stanley, but this is another indicator that you have something other than Stanley on an early rosewood tote. And the cream of the crop from this box is going to be this 4.5. So it must be 4.5 night or 4.5 week or something. So this one appears to be made by Stanley. I think some folks might make the argument that it was a pre-Stanley Union, perhaps. And the reason why I say that is because it's got this Lakeside blade on it. But so I'm going to say it's either made by Stanley, which it has a lot of Stanley characteristics here, or is made by Union, and they were basically copying what Stanley was doing prior to being bought out. That's speculation. Please don't quote any of that. That does look like a rosewood tote. It's got that finish on it that will come off, and then what's underneath there would probably shine through. A lot of Stanley characteristics though, and 4.5s are pretty popular. This one's pretty nice. It's not going to require any repairs. It won't get Stanley money, but it'll definitely get sold. Naturally, I'm saving the best for last. This is second best, so second to last. And I think y'all are going to like this one. I know I definitely am. From a parts guy's perspective, had a long-time customer reach out and said, hey, I want to thin out my extra parts. Are you interested? And I said, of course. And I think you guys are going to dig it. This is obviously a major parts haul, and I don't think I could be more stoked to have this. I got a bag of parts here. These are always going to come in handy anytime I can pick those up and kind of restock a little bit. This is a Stanley gauge that's missing some stuff, so a little G5 in case you haven't seen one of those before. Might be able to get that back together. Might sell the parts, just kind of hard to say. This is actually a Type 19 right here, and I see some random parts. Looks like there's a frog for it, and then here's a lever cap. It's actually in pretty good shape. So this is another one that I could fairly easily rebuild and get that back out on the market and get it back working. I got a whole truckload of rosewood here, rosewood pieces that could go to Greg, that could go to Gordon, one of those repair guys. This one right here might be a good candidate for the tote exchange program, where I send you 2 totes, you fix them both, send them one of them back. So that's a possibility. This number 5 sole has seen better days. Looks like it got soaked in something, so that one might be one that gets retired. Got another aluminum number 5 and up handle. These are really nice. I'm hearing these stories about folks getting shop class back into schools in certain places, and I'm really happy about it. And I think these are ideal, just like Stanley intended them back starting in the 1930s. I think this is ideal to go into those shop classes so that they're not breaking the original rosewood. Of course, more gauge stuff here. That's a blade there. And then I sell a lot of irons. I mean, a lot of irons out of here. I sell irons every week, sometimes multiple per day. And so I'm really stoked to have these. And these aren't just any irons. I mean, a lot of these they look like NOS stuff, some of these. So there's an old T logo, Q logo, little sweetheart. What is that? Now let's go with AA on that one. A little V logo. So, I mean, look at that. Look at that T logo right there. That's a 2-inch. And then another Q. So, I mean, these are going to fly out of here. And there's a later BB model right there. So, pretty stoked about that. And then these are actually old number 2 irons. And look at that Q logo. When's the last time you saw a number 2 Q logo that was that clean and that long? I mean, look at that. And then, of course, a later BB. And look at that. The Q logo is longer. How do you like that? So jolly good show there. In the interest of brevity, I just hit the highlights there. Let's go ahead and move on to this last box because I know y'all are waiting. Alrighty, this last box, I went ahead and opened it off camera. This is a Stanley number 5.5, as you can see. This is a Type 15. I had to reach out to the masses on Facebook and have somebody go and pick this up for me up in the Chicago area. But they picked it up. It worked out great, and I could not be more stoked to have this thing. Look at how clean that is. And just look at that. It's fairly common to find number 4s in the box. Not as common to find a 5.5, and especially not a Sweetheart 5.5. So that is a super old box right there, and most of the label still there, as you can see. And the box really not in bad shape at all. It's got a little blemish there, tiny blemish there. Still got the original paperwork that came with this plane when it was purchased new. You know, I'm going to put this up as, I'm going to say this is one of the finest number 5.5s, original 5.5s in original condition that I've ever seen. I mean, this thing is amazing. And to be a Type 15, that's what I'm putting it at. And to be in this nice of condition, I mean, wow. What do you guys think? And here's an overview of it put together. I mean, look at that. This thing has seen very little, perhaps almost no use whatsoever. Intact tote, full-length blade, still got all the shiny on the lever cap. Beautiful Japanning. I mean, it sounds like I'm trying to sell this thing to you, and if I'm being honest, it is for sale. So all you Sweetheart collectors out there, and especially you guys that like boxes, reach out, let me know. But look at that. Nice Type 15 that has seen very little use. But you know what they say, it's easy to look sharp when you haven't done any work. So you made it to the deep end. First off, let me say thanks for that. And if you're still here, you're just the type of person that might be interested in the new JPF Patreon account that I recently started. So let me tell you about the benefits. First off, you're going to get 5, 10, 15% off any order that you place directly through me, depending on what tier of the Patreon you join. So right there, it's going to pay for itself if you're somebody who orders a lot of parts from me. But you're also going to get priority. So whenever I get new planes, new parts in, if there's something that you're looking for, or even just something that you're interested in, you get first look at all the new stuff as a patron. You're going to get assistance anytime that you need it with valuing your planes, like if you decide that you want to sell some, so appraisals basically, as well as typing your planes with an emphasis on Stanley. So I'm always going to be available at your disposal if you're one of my patrons, and I'm going to help you out any way I can. But wait, there's more. In addition to all those other benefits, if you have an idea for a video as a patron, and if I have the means to make it, it's going to bump up. It's going to be one of the next 5 videos that I make, because I'm putting all my emphasis and my priorities on the patrons, because I want to help y'all out, of course, in exchange for helping me out. So if being a patron of the JPF Patreon account is something that you might be interested in, check out the link in the description for this video. I look forward to hearing from y'all.